problem that banks have right now is after the great financial crisis, what they've done is they make money with hidden fees, with exorbitant fees. They have very restrictive lending practices. Ask anybody who's a middle-income person or a minority or a woman. It's incredibly hard to get access to the money you need to fulfill your dreams. And SoFi has fixed all these things, which is why I think it's such an incredible business.
I mean, SoFi made it clear that it was entertaining the idea of going public through a SPAC. How did you convince Anthony Noto that you were the right sponsor to be the one to make it all come to fruition?
So, you know, the thing that Anthony has done, which is incredible, is he's basically created, again, as I said, this one-stop shop that gets, you know, your money right? A whole suite of products. And the thing is, a lot of what I've done in the past and what my team has done is really help people operationally improve how they grow, how they market, how they can virally expand. And all of these dynamics, I think, came to play because when you look under the hood at SoFi, there's this incredible thing happening. You have these millions of customers, 1.8 million last year, 3 million members this year, but then they are paying for millions and millions of products. And so what we saw were these dynamics where there was this incredible upselling and cross-selling behavior. And what I talked to Anthony about was, you know, can I help? Can I try to do what I've, you know, been able to do at Facebook, what I was able to do at Slack? You know, in fact, when Anthony and I first met 10 years ago, it was actually when he was at Twitter, and we talked about working together there to do the same things. And so that's how the relationship started, and that's how we decided to come together and do this transaction.
I've always sort of wondered when you have a SPAC, it's the quest is about the what, right? I mean, you have basically a year to go find the what. What company are you going to try and merge with and take public? What's not discussed so often is the who. The man or woman behind the company, who is the operator. What is it about Anthony that is attractive? And can you just speak in general to that idea of the importance of the person who's actually running these companies? Because, you know, not all SPACs are created equal. They're not a guaranteed success. You have to rely on the person who's founded this company. You're the investor.
Look, I think you're seeing, even through the events of the last 24 hours, leadership and character really matter, because you are faced with incredibly difficult decisions of policy, of morality, all kinds of things. Here's what I can tell you just personally about Anthony. He has lived an incredibly hard life to get to where he has. And I have tremendous empathy for that because I've lived a similar path. And so I just have deep respect for the man that he is and the character that he has. But then, you know, practically speaking in his career, he is just completely money in the bank. I mean, the former CFO of the NFL, the former CFO of Twitter, the former COO of Twitter, an incredible banker, a great research analyst, and just a wonderful human being. So this is sort of a what you see is what you get kind of guy who really believes in, you know, advancing financial services for, you know, middle America, for normal folks to be able to sort of get ahead. And I just think that that's a person you want to see win. And then as a result, the company that he's built is just really special.
Yeah, we have Anthony with us as well. Anthony Noto joining us now. It's good to see you, Anthony. Congrats on the deal. Happy New Year to you. You should hire Chamath as your PR guy, too, given what he just said about you.
Hi, Scott. Thank you. Happy New Year to you as well. And yes, Chamath, thank you for the kind words. That was very generous of you.
Anthony, you could have done this a number of different ways. Everybody expected that at some point SoFi was going to go public. Why through a SPAC and why with Chamath?
Well, first and foremost, why with Chamath? When we took Chamath through our management presentation, we're actually thinking about a private investment, and we're considering potentially going public in the back half of next year. But as I took Chamath and his team through our management presentation, we start with our mission, and then we talk about our strategy and our points of difference, and then, of course, what we call the financial services productivity loop. And I could see their heads nodding and the questions they asked us afterwards. And so first and foremost, we're just super aligned on the strategy that we're taking. We're also very much aligned to what the opportunity was in front of us. And then most importantly, what it was going to take to get there. And the how is really, really critical, and having investors that understand the magnitude of the investment that we have to make in technology, the magnitude of the big bets that we need to take to capture that opportunity, and just be a very big, ambitious thinker in setting really high, lofty goals. We think we're going to impact the world in an incredible way, and that first and foremost was important. Second is he has a reputation and a relationship with institutional investors, and I thought the combination of the relationships I had, the combination of the relationships he had, we could really do a much better job educating people on the opportunity together, two being stronger than one, and we could go to market together, which is very unique among the different SPACs. And then third, they've done this a number of times. They are very experienced. They understand how to operationalize the whole process of doing a SPAC into a public company, and had done it very successfully. And so, that was also important. And then last, there are a lot of things we'll do together strategically based on what he's experienced in his professional career and the growth team that he has at Social Capital, and that we can also benefit from at Social Finance. And just before you ask the question, it's Social Capital and Social Finance, so it seems like it was going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Why a SPAC versus an IPO? I'd say a couple things. Doing a SPAC allows you to really educate investors at a depth that's not that affordable or afforded in an IPO. So we can spend a lot of time between right now and when the vote actually happens to de-SPAC and close the merger with investors, educating them on what SoFi is and what the opportunity is. And that's really critical to build that strong foundation of what we're focused on and what we're going to do over the next 5 to 10 years, because institutional investors clearly are going to have to deal with dislocations in the market. They're going to have to deal with the ups and downs of operating companies, and the more they understand the long-term view of what we're doing, the better we'll serve them and the better value that we'll drive for shareholders over time. So education was number one. Number two is deal certainty. We're announcing today a substantial amount of capital raised already. There's more capital that will come onto our balance sheet when we close the merger. But today we're sitting here with, a very large pipe of about $1.225 billion, plus a private investment from T. Rowe for another $370 million that we closed just at the front end of this, which drove some momentum for us as well. And so deal certainty really matters. You've seen people file an S1 for an IPO and then it doesn't get done. That's incredibly damaging to a brand. And a brand like ours, where people have to trust us and we need to be a household brand name, we can't take that risk of something happening in the world that's out of our control that damages the process of us going public. So, the deal certainty here in terms of the capital raise is much higher. Obviously, nothing's 100% certain. There are still risks, but there's more deal certainty. And then the last thing is we can really provide a forward view of where we're investing and what businesses are in invest mode and what businesses are actually in profit mode. And we're really benefiting from 3 different businesses, some of which are growing really, really fast and profitable, some of which are growing faster but not profitable. And it's a combination of understanding those 3 business lines. So a SPAC allows us to do that, and that's why we made the decision.
Now that my viewers have a chance to literally invest in you and your company, what's your sales pitches to them as to why they should consider SoFi in their basket of fintech stocks and the belief you have in your own company's growth going forward?
Yeah, what I'd say is, we're going through the process that we'll have to go through to close the deal, and we need to file the SEC document, the S4, for the proxy vote, and so I'll leave a lot of it to that document. We do have a management presentation that's publicly available, but at the end of the day, if you think about the market opportunity in front of us, i.e. financial services moving from physically done to digitally done, and what player is providing a comprehensive set of solutions on one mobile device, to the best of my knowledge, only SoFi is providing on a digital device the ability to borrow, save, spend, invest, and protect. And we're doing that on our own technology platform, vertically integrated, just like the way Amazon is. And there's this market opportunity of 500 million accounts that are still tied to legacy FDIC banks. And those experiences are still physically based in branches and not as functional as our experience on our mobile phone. So we're a one-stop shop on your mobile phone for a comprehensive suite of products. We create faster experiences. We provide better selection. We provide better content and better convenience to really capture those that are looking for that experience online versus offline, just in the same way we saw this unfold for e-commerce and e-retailing from 1999 to today. And so that opportunity hasn't even started to move online yet in a big way, given there's 500 million accounts still tied to the incumbent banks. And we have an opportunity with this one-stop shop comprehensive solution to capture them in a unique way.
Yeah. Steve Weiss, do you have a question? Well, we're having a problem with Steve Weiss's mic. We'll figure that out. Josh Brown, I know, has one as well. Josh, hopefully we can hear you.
Yeah, hey guys, congratulations on the deal. I'm a big fan of what you've built at SoFi so far, and I think having Chamath involved takes it up another level. I wanted to ask you about this idea of, I guess, a form of arbitrage whereby it's true that the large traditional banks charge all these hidden fees and have all these costs associated with being a customer of theirs, but they, to some extent, have to because their shareholders expect it. Imagine if Jamie Dimon said, for the next 2 years, JP Morgan is going to forgo profitability. We're just going to reinvest in services and cut all our prices on everything by 90%. He'd have a revolt on his hands and the share price would collapse. Whereas fintech companies like this one and SPACs that are funding them, they have a shareholder base that's not so worried about profits right away and can wait. It's almost reminiscent of Berkshire Hathaway and some of the advantages of capital raising that they had. What do you guys think about that being an advantage right now and potentially for as far as the eye can see, years in the future?
Yeah, it's something that's really important to understand, which is that when we partnered with Anthony, what we're really doing is enabling him to build, as you said, an extremely different business, even though it competes effectively with, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and JP Morgan and the like. Because underneath the hood, the great thing about SoFi is that this is a technology company that doesn't just have this great consumer brand that Anthony just walked you through. It actually also has an enterprise business. So meaning, the great way that Amazon was able to build such an enormous company was because they had this duality, right? They were able to invest in consumer businesses and then take all that technology and sell it to other companies. SoFi is the only other company we've seen doing this at scale. It's built what we call the AWS of fintech. So what we are enabling, exactly as you said, is the complete disruption of all this legacy infrastructure. JP Morgan has to fight with one hand tied behind their back with technology that's 50, 60, and 70 years old. Instead, SoFi has built this great business for consumers, but it is also the platform that Chime is built on top of, that Robinhood is built on top of, that Dave.com is built on top of. And so, SoFi wins both ways. They win from consumer adoption, but they also win from enterprise adoption. And we've seen what happened when you brought those two things together in e-commerce. And so to your point, we're funding a technology company. It just so happens to be competing against folks that unfortunately have to fight with one hand tied behind their back.
And the other thing I would just add to Chamath's comments to answer your question is, when we architect our products, we're challenging our general managers and our product managers to differentiate on those 4 differentiators of fast, selection, content, and convenience. But we're also challenging them to drive superior unit economics per account or per loan. And we're leveraging a strategy where we want to build trust and reliability with a member in one product that's a best-in-class product that has great unit economics. So when they think about using their next product, they choose SoFi. And when they do, we increase our revenue per member quite meaningfully. We don't pay a second customer acquisition cost, which adds to the lifetime value of the customer. And that excess profits can be reinvested in better prices, better interest rates, better selection, better content, faster service, and we just drive the flywheel. We call that financial services productivity loops. So we're starting with an economic model on a per account or per loan basis that is superior. Our per loan economics have on average generated about 40 to 50% variable profit margins or more over the last 2 years. And that gives us a lot of excess profits to reinvest in these better services, just the way Amazon has and Walmart as low-cost operators. And it is a unique advantage that we don't have these high costs that then force you to charge fees, overdraft fees, and minimum balances and minimum spend. And so we can uniquely differentiate each product, and then they work better together to drive what we call as our flywheel, as the financial services productivity loop.
Steve Weiss, I think we fixed your audio.
Yep, here I am. First of all, I'd like to echo everything Chamath said about Anthony. We go back about 25 years from when we worked together at Solomon. I've known everything that Chamath has said to be true. Here's my question. I've had the benefit and the privilege of talking to you offline about potentially collaborating a few things. I've spoken to some of your people, excellent. And what strikes me is that you can bring products to market quickly, but you don't do it without doing your due diligence, do extensive due diligence. So I imagine being a public company, and now you have a public currency that you'll be able to attract even more high-quality people. And despite not being shy about your advertising budget before, of course, SoFi Stadium, that having that public company, that ticker out there, will bring more clients into the fold. So do you see it that same way?
I do think being a public company is, I think Bill Gurley may have made this analogy of a college player deciding to apply for the draft. And we think being a public company will take our company to the next level. It allow us to recruit and retain talent more. It allow us to elevate our focus on driving shareholder value. The public scrutiny, I think, is a positive thing for companies. And it requires that we make right choices and we think about how we prioritize our resources. We can't do all things for everyone, and so we have to make the right bets and allocate the resources the right way and manage risk the right way. And now that we'll be in a public spotlight, sort of the importance of that, the significance of it, and the focus of the company on it really changes. I've done dozens and dozens of IPOs as a research analyst and as a banker, and companies that are prepared to go public, which I am confident we are, take their performance to the next level. They have higher notoriety, they're more high profile, but they're also in a world in which there's a measurement every day that shows them how they're doing over the long term. And so we welcome the opportunity to be a public company. Our employees have made this happen. They deserve the rewards of having some liquidity. We wouldn't be here today without all of the hard work of so many of our existing employees and our previous employees. And so I'm just representing all those people that have had a huge impact on our members' lives and got us to this point. But we're all excited about taking this next step, and we spent 2020 preparing for this moment. So it's a big day for us.
Before I let you go, Anthony, and I don't want to let you go without having you address the events that we all witnessed yesterday. You're a proud graduate of the United States Military Academy. A lot of CEOs are speaking out over the last 24 hours plus about the events that everybody witnessed yesterday. You've tweeted some things about it. I'd like to hear, though, from you directly.
Yeah, so yesterday was a very, very challenging day. When you do deals like this, there's a ton of things going on in that last day. And so there's a fog over you. And I was on a Zoom conference call talking about allocations, talking about press releases, talking about final signatures and deal terms. And I looked up and I saw on my TV, which was on mute, like this rioting and unrest, and I immediately thought, boy, that looks like Berlin. Are they showing us something from, World War I or World War? I was confused because I'm focused on the Zoom, and then I'm like, well, maybe that is the Soviet Union. And then I realized it was the United States, and I couldn't believe it. It's just unacceptable. It's intolerable what happened yesterday. It challenges the very fabric and foundation of our democracy. And what's worse, it's incited by the most important, the most privileged position in the United States, the seat of our president. And so it's absolutely intolerable. It's unacceptable. I believe in free speech. I believe in free demonstration, but it needs to be done with mutual respect. And it needs to be done within the letter of the law and the rule of law. And it's up to our public officials to reinforce those principles, not challenging them and break them down. So I was appalled by what I saw and disturbed by it. We sent a message to our company, and we as leaders are responsible to run after these problems. One of our core values at SoFi is we run after problems. This is a problem all of us face, and each one of us has to have that mentality that it's our responsibility to make a difference. And it's not someone else's problem, it's each of our problems. And I think back to what happened in the greatest atrocities in the world over the last 100 years, and social media platforms are actually making us more aware of those things today. And when I saw the video of the President of the United States saying what he was saying, I said to myself, thank God we have Twitter. Thank God we have Facebook. Thank God we have Snapchat and we have YouTube. Otherwise, we'd be in the dark, and it would allow this type of behavior to perpetuate itself. And those leaders of those companies are making the best decisions they can. And so are others. And so I applaud them for taking action and running after problems and trying to solve the solution instead of accepting it and letting it become the norm. So that's how I think about it. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I want you to finish your thought. Forgive me.
No, that's okay. That's how I think about it. I think it's important that we all as leaders maintain the foundation of what has made our country great, and we take responsibility for doing that and don't wait for someone else to take the action. We have to run after problems and make the difference.
Look, you went there with social media. You used to be a high-ranking executive at Twitter, which has shut the president out now for 12 hours. You don't think Twitter and social media has been responsible in any way for what we witnessed yesterday?
I think we're all responsible. We had a free election. We elected the administration. We made that choice. We're now suffering the consequences. So now we have to take another action and take responsibility for our actions. And we elected a new president, President-elect Biden, and we should support him. It's time for the administration to hand over the flag. The change of command needs to happen seamlessly, and it's our responsibility for making it happen. We can't blame one person, one organization, or one leader. We, the people, are responsible for what happened, and we, the people, are responsible for fixing it.
You think Twitter made the right decision?
I think Twitter is faced with really tough decisions, and I don't know all the details to weigh in on whether or not this was the right decision. What I will say is this. We are better as a country when we can see a leader that is trying to break the foundation of our democracy, and to be aware of that and see it firsthand so it doesn't go unnoticed, so that we can react and identify the problem. But there becomes a point when the balance flips over, where the balance of giving the world the visibility of that, the transparency of that, comes at the risk of the people. And I think we saw that yesterday.
Anthony,
and so I'm with Jack.
I appreciate you coming on today. Congratulations on the deal. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And Chamath, to Social Capital, we can't thank you enough for all the support, and the banking and legal teams that have worked around the clock for months. Thank you.
That's Anthony Noto. Chamath, I'd like to continue on this line of conversation that we're on now. You were an early Facebook employee. You've been critical of that company. What are your thoughts on what Twitter has announced? Facebook now says that they're going to ban President Trump throughout the remainder of his term, which is a couple of weeks. How are you thinking about this today?
I'm really of mixed emotions. Let me just tell you what I feel as an ex-employee. What I'm thinking to myself is that if I was working at Facebook today, I would be confused. And largely because I would wonder what changed from 6 months ago, 1 year ago, 24 months ago, and today. The disinformation was the same. The amount of sort of vitriol that flowed through some of the groups was the same. Their ability to organize was the same. Storm the Capitol existed before they actually stormed the Capitol. And so, unfortunately, the skeptical part of me says we optimized for short-term profitability at the sake of our democracy, and what we left in tatters was any sense that there was any sort of moral or ethical imperative that would govern decision-making at that company. And so that saddens me for the people that work there. As a business person, I think we're also slightly to blame because we've sort of, said that that's okay because we've been enamored with the short-term profitability of Facebook. So I think in a nutshell, I think Anthony is right that we are collectively a part of this problem. I don't think it's theirs of their own making. If the feedback loop to Facebook was fix this problem, otherwise we will sell your stock, they would have fixed it a long time ago. Instead, it was, you're rich, get richer, we'll support you. And this is what happens, Scott.
Roger McNamee, who I know that you know, said earlier on the network, he called what Facebook's done, and he's been a notable critic, to say the least. He called it an act of desperation, echoing your words that the kind of things that we've seen on Facebook have gone on for too long. He said Chris Sacca, who is an early Twitter investor, has been in the Shark Tank as well, and I know you know Chris too. He was more explicit in his criticism of both Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg. You've got blood on your hands, Jack and Zuck. For 4 years, you've rationalized this terror. Inciting violent treason is not a free speech exercise. If you work at those companies, it's on you too. Shut it down.
Scott, I think that we have to make a very clear distinction here. I think Twitter and Facebook are two very different products. I think the thing with Twitter is I actually think they're less to blame. And the reason is because the product is designed for everybody to be able to follow everybody else. So there is an incredible free flow of information. It does create a different problem, which is how do you construct a healthy social media diet? But that's what the problem is on Twitter. The problem on Facebook is different, which is it amplifies echo chambers on purpose and by design. And so if you're somebody who, for whatever reason, feels disenfranchised, you can find a corner of the internet where you can amplify your worst fears. And unfortunately, 90% of that activity now happens inside of Facebook. The reality is that I think we've all realized after today that Section 230 is a fig leaf, that there is no way that these companies can hide behind it, that Facebook is a publisher, that they should be held to the same account as any television station or any newspaper, and that's okay. And they should just figure out how to adapt the product and move on. The thing about today, which I think is just unfortunate, is backpedaling is just kind of spineless, right? For example, Kelly Loeffler can't go into the floor of the Senate and all of a sudden change her mind because there was rioting and 4 deaths. That's what it took. But everything else, it didn't change the actual perspective of whether there was voter fraud or not. And so all these fig leaves, people see through them, and people know them to be fake. And so we just have to have a real come to Jesus in this country about what's really important.
Just to put a button on it before we take a quick break, so you think Section 230 should be repealed?
I think Section 230 needs to change, and I think that these social media companies need to be dealt with as publishers. And I think at the front of the line is Facebook, because they are algorithmically deciding. There are people inside of that company that are building these things that are amplifying the lobotomization, the intellectual cornering of people, so that they cannot learn what's really happening, so that their worst fear